Hey, what is up, mortals? It is Jessica Gem here. Welcome to Season 1, Part 3 of What If Midoriya Had the One Ring? I just wanted to greet you guys by saying, sit back and relax, you're in for a treat. And so, we begin. Izuku sat in his bedroom as the darkness of night fell upon the Midoriya household. He sat cross-legged on his bed, training the latest ability of the golden glowing ring. The One Ring darkly murmured and whispered as the teen's eyes turned from their calm green. The innocence disappeared within them, replaced by a burning, fiery orange and black vision. This ability was called by Midoriya, Gaze of the One. His gaze was to be tested tonight. Midoriya cast his gaze to the left, hissing into the dark. He felt his vision stretch far. There he was, laying in his sleep. It was Midoriya's target, an ash-blonde teenager, Bakugo.
Once so powerful with your bravado and your quirk, but now you pale in comparison to the might of the One Ring and its master. You know not of what is to come.
Once again growling into night, Izuku Midoriya turned his gaze toward a different direction. His vision cast over the building of UA High. Sitting and grading papers miserably was Aizawa, and beside him there were a few more heroes in the staff room. Cementos, Midnight, Precept Mike, and the intimidating figure of All Might, who rose from his seat quickly and left the room in a hurry. Where were you off to, All Might? Nezu's office. Interesting. But why the hurry? All Might quickly sat down before the principal of UA. The symbol of peace began to breathe heavily and clutch at his side, wincing as steam rose from his body.
Oh my. This is interesting. If only I could hear them.
The young teen cursed to himself.
So the symbol of peace is wounded. Very wounded. And he isn't as he appears. Most definitely fascinating.
As All Might sat down before Nezu and slowly allowed his true form to be shown. The symbol of peace and the principal spoke a few words. The subject turned to All Might, choosing a successor for One for All. And it was as Nezu asked that the very quirk they spoke of chose to allow All Might to call upon one ability from one of the few vestiges. A secret All Might had kept close was that at the most dangerous of times, one vestige would step forth and grant All Might their aid. The skeletal male shot up from his seat, knocking over Nezu's tea as the user of Danger Sense granted Toshinori Yagi temporary and weakened use of their quirk, which was a first. Usually the vestiges would give All Might the extra strength to keep fighting, but never their quirks. The weakened symbol of peace stood in Nezu's office and shuddered in fear, facing something that only he could now perceive. Nezu looked on at the blonde holder of One for All, taken aback as All Might, symbol of peace, one of the few men who could stand before All for One, unblinkingly was gazing at something with true fear on the man's face.
What can you see, Toshinori?
The answer? A great, burning eye with a black slit pupil watching All Might. Whispers and hisses coming from it, all in a language that not only sounded most foul, but he couldn't understand a single word of its dark whispers. Someone was watching him. Someone or something knew his secret. What could he do? It was a giant eye of flame. He could hardly just punch it. But then a voice echoed from the eye, using a dialect he could understand.
All right. Can you see me?
The voice echoed darkly. Impossible to tell who it was, how old they were. Could it be? No, this wasn't him. All for One sounded and acted differently. This was someone who held no ill intent for the hero, only being able to see the great burning eye, not its user. The symbol of peace spoke up as he gathered his strength.
I only see your massive eye that seems to be made of a great fire. Who are you? I can tell you are no villain, or at least not one yet.
The symbol of peace had to keep every ounce of his courage mustered as he spoke to this entity that had seen him at his weakest.
It would seem that even though you can clearly see me and hear me, I cannot hear you, All Might. Simply shake or nod your head if you can see me.
A requested action that received an interesting response from All Might, who merely pointed to his eye.
My eye? You can really see my eye?
All Might gave a nod towards the eye that slowly began looking towards the confused rodent principal behind his desk, trying to understand what was going on.
I see only you can see my gaze. Fascinating. Well, All Might, I shall keep your secret as I gain nothing by exposing it, currently anyway. As for villains, do not fret. I am not one of them, and I stand to lose more than gain by telling them your secret. But I believe in fair trade. Should we cross paths, you will let me walk. But you still need my name. How rude of me. I am Sauron. You may explain to Nezu what has happened as you see fit, but remember, I will keep your secret, so long as you hold your side of our deal.
With that, Midoriya left the skeletal symbol and intellectual principle to their discussions, and decided to scout his competition in the recommended entrance exam. First, his gaze of the One fell upon the Todoroki household, and what he witnessed sickened the Lord of the Ring to the core. It seemed Endeavor believed in no rest as he trained his son Shoto Todoroki, but to call it training would be a falsehood. What that man was doing to his own child could only compare to corporal punishment. Even dictators and tyrants trained and treated their men better, yet the results spoke for themselves. Shoto Todoroki was a massive threat due to these abusive actions he had to suffer as his training from his father, Enji Todoroki, or Endeavor. But he did not deserve his hero name anymore, as far as Midoriya was concerned. Still, Shoto was a great threat due to his quirk, half hot, half cold. Growing sickened by the face of the man known as Enji Todoroki, Izuku, or Sauron as he had called himself earlier, turned his eye elsewhere. A luxury manor estate. So this was the home of the Momo Yaoyorozu, who Midoriya had been told time after time shares a creation-type quirk. This place was less a manor and more like a palace. It took forever for his gaze to see the raven-haired creationist performing some late-night studies over various books, all as she created tiny balls of steel from her palm, training her quirk lightly. It would seem this young princess practically had it all, and more. Midoriya eventually pulled himself away to go and view somebody else when he blushed heavily, realizing his gaze was lingering a little bit too long on the heiress's features, and he did not want to be a peeping pervert. Next were his training buddies. Juzo Hononuki and Midoriya had found much common ground, and it was easy enough to call him a friend. It had seemed that there wasn't much going on with the softening quirk user, who was sound asleep, and after the training they were doing during the day, who could blame him? Next up was another girl.
Let's practice self-control, Midoriya.
Setsuna Tokage. Yeah, this was bizarre, the green-haired observer thought. The girl had her body split doing different activities around her room. With one hand and her mouth floating near her body, the sharp-toothed teenage girl was speaking into a phone, whilst her body, an eye, and a hand were going through a book. As for the rest of her, it relaxed upon Tokage's bed. Not wanting a repeat of before, Midoriya's gaze fell upon the final recommended examinee. There was supposed to be another recommendation, but he apparently turned it down. Midoriya's gaze fell upon Shinso, who was partially awake. The brainwashing teen was sitting up on his bed, touching the ring that had been gifted to him, and he wore it proudly. The ring of Angmar. Shinso then looked up as if something caught his attention, allowing the powers of his own ring to activate and the armor of Angmar to ensnare him. Shinso looked directly towards Izuku, just as All Might had done before. This felt different, however, and it was different indeed.
Midoriya?
Shinso called out, as if he knew who this great flaming eye belonged to. How? The ring of Angmar had a connection to the Master Ring, the One Ring, letting Shinso know who it was, his master, the Lord of the One Ring, Izuku Midoriya.
Huh? You can see me, and you know who I am? It must be your ring. It is connected to my own after all.
Izuku smiled as he looked at his friend, and the first to carry a ring of Midoriya's crafting, Hitoshi Shinso.
I mean, I know it's you. I have this kind of feeling, or sixth sense. But if I didn't, I wouldn't have known, given the whole deep, echoey, spooky voice, plus the giant burning eye.
Shinso chuckled back in reply to his lord.
I suggest we get some rest, Izuku. Aizawa said we'd be put through some tougher training tomorrow, considering the exams are only a few more days away.
Midoriya took the counsel of his best friend and finished using his gaze. The eyes of the green-haired teen returned to normal as his ring ceased its glowing. It was as Shinso had promised. The final days of training were horrid and truly difficult. Apparently, Aizawa had planned to give Shinso the recommendation if he made it through the month without quitting anyway, and the whole brainwashing the sleepy underground teacher-to-be was a deception to get Shinso to give his all. However, the hero titled Eraserhead was certainly surprised by Shinso's little deception of his own. Perhaps this tougher training was a form of revenge? Izuku Midoriya, Shoto Todoroki, Momo Yaoyorozu, Hitoshi Shinso, Juzo Honanuki, and Setsuna Tokage all stood before Yue as people filed in slowly to take their regular exam. They were like a flow of cattle being taken to slaughter, and only the strongest would survive. Each of them were but grains of sand beneath the master of the One Ring's feet. The recommended students were each asked to wait to be picked up by their respective recommendation provider and taken to their testing grounds. Shinso was taken away by Eraserhead. Honanuki was led away by Cementos. It seemed Endeavor used his clout with Yue and status to be permitted to hand out a recommendation, as it wasn't even him who came to collect Shoto Todoroki, but the sidekick, Burnin, and Momo followed after Lunch Rush of all heroes. Now it was just Midoriya and Tokage. Just perfect. It didn't take her too long to try and start a conversation. Izuku supposed he could oblige, since he was for the most part the quiet one of the group under Aizawa's training. Just jumping in from where she was randomly blabbering at him, he decided to be the one to speak up.
So, you know Nezu recommended me. I mean, it's no secret. And he has to watch all the regulars, so it's no wonder he's taking his time with me. But who recommended you? I would have thought I'd be left here alone until the regular exams had finished.
Oh, it's Ectoplasm who recommended me, and he has to watch over the standards too. In fact, he has a few clones at every testing area, in case something goes wrong. I asked if he could send a clone to lead me to my test, but he told me that he wants to do it personally. Guess I should be honored, huh? Tokage smirked at Midoriya, only to have the teenage boy roll his eyes at her. This was gonna be a long wait. May as well just watch the other exams and pretend to listen.
Tokage, follow me now. The students in one of the testing zones are in danger. No time to explain, but we have to go help.
Midoriya's white robes and silver helm were summoned over his UA sports uniform, and he began running almost inhumanly in the direction of the standard hero testing zones. Tokage took flight, laughing, behind Midoriya. You had me at danger, Midoriya. Whatever is going on, let's prove our worth as recommendation students. You go for the issue at hand, and I'll get help from one of Ectoplasm's clones. With that plan laid out, the green-haired teens separated to fulfill their roles. Midoriya latched onto the gates of the test zone he had gazed into, and quickly leapt over it, charging past the weaklings who chose to flee when the calls of help can so clearly be heard from behind them. All as Tokage rounded up and collected as many clones of her mentor, Ectoplasm, as fast as she could. Something was wrong. The gate to the testing zone wasn't responding to the override code. It was locked and wouldn't open, and within the control room the zero-pointer wouldn't shut down either within that zone. It must be a coding error or a glitch in the system, Nezu repeated over and over as he gave a worried look to the others in the observation and control room. Soon the voice of the original Ectoplasm rang out like a bell of hope.
There, look! Someone's charging in to save that girl! Wait, it's that Midoriya boy you spoke of, Nezu.
The cloning hero muttered, watching Midoriya charge in, with what could be mistaken for idiotic, reckless abandon for self-preservation, or what should be seen as selfless bravery. Midoriya practically appeared beside a trapped brunette with pink cheeks, using his bare hands to push the treads of the zero-pointer backwards. But even with the boosted power of the One Ring, it wasn't enough. He could feel it, the ground beneath his feet. Midoriya was being pushed back, and if he didn't think of something fast, both he and this brunette in peril would be flattened. I'm so sorry. We're both gonna die because my quirk is so weak. Because I lack the conviction to train harder. Otherwise, I wouldn't be in this mess, and we wouldn't be about to die. The girl teared up, accepting that death was to be their fate. That the Lord of the One Ring would just accept that as a possible outcome. No.
What's your quirk?
Midoriya grunted towards the female who had all but given up hope. Gravity, why? Glaring daggers at this girl from under his silver-masked helm, Izuku looked at her silently, waiting for her to elaborate on what it does, since a name doesn't help them here. Catching on quickly, she immediately answered further, as her unknown hero kept the 0-pointer's advance at an impasse for as long as he could. I can manipulate gravity, making things weightless and then releasing them, restoring their full weight again.
How is that useless? Damn, I hate this robot. Alright, if we work together, we can sort this mess out. I just need your trust. You see the ring on my finger? That's my quirk. The only way to remove it is by taking it off myself. With that comes the... damn, this thing is pushing back hard. When I'm not wearing it, I lose a piece of my abilities. But if someone puts it else on, they can get some of my abilities, plus their quirk get enhanced tenfold. Jeez. Okay, on the count of 3, I'm gonna throw it to you. And I need you to put it on and use your enhanced quirk on the rubble covering you. And this robot bastard.
Izuku shouted his plan to the slightly confused yet very terrified girl. This was certainly a better plan than dying doing nothing, she thought to herself. Removing his one ring, Midoriya could instantly feel the 0-pointer gaining ground now, but still struggling a bit to squash the two. Tossing the golden piece of jewelry to the gravity quirk user, she scrambled to grasp it and put it on, but upon doing so, the girl placed her hand on the debris, effortlessly lifting it off of herself. Wincing a bit at her broken ankle, the girl wielding Midoriya's ring of power began to crawl towards the 0-pointer and activated her quirk on its treads. Feeling the shift in weight, Midoriya instantly and easily forced back the now weightless 0-pointer into an angle where it would fall on its back thanks to the assistance of the gravity user, which it did with a loud crash as she released her anti-gravity ability. Offering his hand out towards the girl he had just saved, Izuku requested his ring back, but she seemed to recoil at this request as she stroked such a beautiful and powerful item in her palm. With this, she could easily be a hero. In fact, she could be the number 1 and help both her and her family never worry about money again. Although, becoming a hero would just take too long. She could run away with this ring and do whatever it took to get the financial future her family needed. Then again, would she really need her family? Why should she share all that wealth or this ring at all?
I think not,
Midoriya loudly shouted as he snatched the ring from the first person to ever share in the One Ring's power. Izuku heard every piece of the pink-cheeked examinee's ramblings within her mind, and as he snatched the ring from her and it glowed, returning to its master's finger, the poor girl snapped out of it, scarcely believing what she was starting to think. It must be another drawback that happens if the masked hero shares his quirk, the brunette concluded internally. Eventually, Tokage, Recovery Girl, and Ectoplasm came running. Checking behind them, it seemed UA had had to cut through the exam gate to get everyone out and help the injured. With the situation handled and praises going around for dealing with the haywire 0-pointer, all that remained were questions. Who was behind the sabotage? What had happened here? Why hadn't anyone been able to stop it? But the next question for Izuku is, what hellish recommendation exam did Nezu have in store for the Lord of the Master Ring? Thank you for watching. Drop a comment about your favorite series or suggestions, and huge thanks to our team for another amazing video. If you're interested in joining us and you are 16 years of age or older, feel free to check out the Team Discord link in the description. That's all for now, so farewell and have a divine day.